What are the consequences if we do nothing? Will we do anything about this or just leave it to be? 1 in 6 of your staff in any given year will suffer a mental health injury. So today we've definitely taken that strategy, and we do have a full solution pretty well baked into Multiply Me, ready to go. So what you'll learn today is what's happening, and then we'll show you how can we actually address all of that, and it's all been pre-prepared. Hey guys, Luke here from Multiply Me. Thank you for joining me for this webinar on psychosocial workplace hazards. Now, there's been a lot of hype around psychosocial. The word is probably very new to a lot of us. I know myself, for being in construction, I didn't know what the word was probably even 12 months ago. It's something very new to me, but we've been learning a lot in this space so we can support our subscribers and our members of Multiply Me. The first thing that we're probably all realizing, there's a lot of hype around it at the moment. What is psychosocial, mental health, all this stuff that's happening. Now, we've got news that laws have just gone live on December, but the truth is, in most states, these laws have been live since 2021, 22, and 23. So what we're going to do today, guys, is demystify what all this means, show you what the new laws are, and then come to you or deliver you almost a complete solution that's already baked inside Multiply Me. So we're coming to you today with what's happening. This is what you got to do, but then we've already got it organized for you as well. So the first speaker is Meg Campbell. She's from Coast to Country HR. Now, the reason I love Meg is because that she has a working business inside her family. Her husband has a scaffolding company, manages staff in the same environment that we do. So she knows what the conversations at the kitchen table are like every day, and also understands the legal side of it and what we're supposed to do. Second is Kurt from TX. Kurt is just another Australian, amazing Aussie. And when I first met him, I was like, he's a guy I can speak to. And I think that's why he's very good at his job and why he's working at TX and why he does such an amazing job there. We are very lucky to have Kurt with us, and he's become really our main contact at TX, and we've invited him along today to introduce himself, build their presence, but also respond to a couple of questions today. Before we get into it, guys, there's 3 things that are going to happen today. The first are a clear understanding of what the laws are. Second, what are the consequences of getting it wrong? We'll look at a real life case study of a transport company. The last one is that we'll give you a look at what's happening inside Multiply Me and how we've baked the solutions already in.
The blue collar industry, tradies, truckies, farmers, and all tradies in general. The most common thing is that cycle that people find themselves in. I think that cycle is usually maintained by some problems with work, some problems with family, some problems with parenting, all the kind of normal stuff that we all experience. And certainly I think we're big at TX in acknowledging that we all go through these things on some level, and we'd much rather people reach out, have a yarn, get some tools, have the opportunity to get some things off their chest and normalize this stuff. So it's great that we're here kind of talking about this stuff, and great that everyone's here keen to kind of understand all this more.
Thanks, Kurt. Hey, just quickly for you, Kurt. When I introduce TX, 90% of people know who you are because I say trademark the colourful shirts, and they're like, oh yeah, we've seen that stuff around. Are you guys, just to lay it out, are you guys similar to a Black Dog or Beyond Blue, but for tradies, blue collar, is that right?
Yeah, essentially, like we are a phone service like, say, Beyond Blue. I guess the difference is, yeah, we primarily focus on the blue collar industry, but we also provide ongoing support. So, you know, where you call Beyond Blue for sort of one call and you might be in crisis, you know, we support people with up to, 8 phone counselling sessions. So certainly similar in the kind of medium for receiving the support, but a bit more extended, and certainly, yeah, trying to get people to reach out early rather than later.
Okay. And is it only for people that are in workplaces that can reach out to you, or is it anyone?
Try to be as liberal as we can in kind of ensuring that people get support. So, if someone is a current tradie, an ex-tradie, their brother or sister's a tradie, their husband or wife's a tradie, they've done some kind of blue collar work in the past, we'll make the service available to them. So it doesn't have to just be for your average kind of chippy or plumber on the work side. It's a pretty broad area that we kind of, want to support, obviously.
Okay. So the wife of a tradie could definitely call up and say, hey, these trade specific things are impacting our family, and that'd be right up your alley.
It doesn't even have to be trade specific, honestly. Like if the wife of a tradie is reaching out because they're experiencing anything, then they would be eligible for the support based purely on their connection to a tradie. It doesn't have to be anything to do with work. Work might be, fun and dandy. It might be something else.
Okay, awesome. Okay, and look, if anyone's got any questions on the way through, please feel free to raise them, and I'll try and keep an eye on the chat here as well. All right, so we'll switch back to Meg. I want to frame this a little bit by saying that what I want to come out of this with is a clear understanding of what these laws actually require. So we'll get Meg to go through that. What are the consequences if we do nothing? Because that's essentially the choices that we have after we hear this, is will we do anything about this or just leave it to be? Something I talk to my team about is when you come to me with a problem, come to me with two solutions as well. Don't just dump the problem. So today we've definitely taken that strategy, and we do have a full solution pretty well baked into Multiply Me, ready to go. So what you'll learn today is what's happening, and then we'll show you how can we actually address all of that, and it's all been pre-prepared. So Meg, why don't we jump into your presentation, and we're going to start with why does this matter? Like, what's happening right now? Why does it matter? And then take us through your presentation, please.
Thank you, Luke, and thank you, Kurt, for sharing a bit more about TX. I'm going to share my screen. We'll go through a presentation, and as Luke mentioned, I'm not aiming to sort of explore the whole area of psychosocial hazards and psychological safety, but to really understand what is the legislation asking of us as an employer or business leader, and what do we need to do to sort of make sure that we're compliant in that space. So I'm going to share my screen. Okay, so coming into 2026, as Luke touched on yesterday, there were some states that the laws changed, but some of them have been around for 2 to 3 years. So since 21, 22, 23, where the state work health safety legislation has been updated, and now we're seeing it all across Australia. So why does it matter now? We can see there are some really, really big impacts. So we understand now that for statistics going back to 21-22, psychological injury claims made up 9% of all serious claims. That was a 37% increase in the 5 years since 2018. So if we think about that, that's huge. 37%, that's a huge number. The reports of new statistics coming out for 2025, 24 to 25, are showing that again has increased to being 12% of claims. Not only that, in specific industries, especially construction, we can see there's a crisis essentially. The statistics show that construction workers are 6 times more likely to die by suicide than they are from a physical workplace injury. Now that's a really, really big statistics, and that's showing that an industry like construction, all the effort that we put into physical safety and ensuring that those physical hazards are managed, may not be as impactful on our actual team members and employees as looking after their mental health and their well-being as well. So thirdly, from a psychological injury impact and how it affects small businesses, if somebody goes off work on a workers' compensation claim and they're away from, they will be away from work up to 4 times longer than a physical claim. So that's 4 times longer off work being paid through your workers' compensation claim, and they have 3 times as expensive. They can be very, very complex, very, very difficult to manage, and have a big impact not only on the employee, but your business and your wider team as well.
Hey Meg, why are they 4 times longer?
I guess it's difficult because of the ability to return to work. So a lot of psychological claims that have come about from a workplace injury, which means that the injury has occurred in workplace, but it's been on someone's psychological safety as opposed to their physical safety. That might often mean something like bullying and harassment. That might often mean something like an interpersonal issue at work. And it might mean the treatment is a little bit longer. So to resolve an issue like anxiety, to resolve an issue like depression that may have come from this incident at work is a little bit more complex and a little bit more complicated than it is to fix a sprain or a stain or a broken bone. So they're more difficult to recover from, they're more difficult to deal with, and there's some real barriers in recovery at work and return to work. It's very hard to have suitable duties if somebody can't get, the issue is that they've been bullied by their manager. It's very difficult to get them back in the workplace. So you do actually have that real separation from the workplace, which then compounds it. If anyone's experienced workers' compensation, the longer someone's out of the workplace, the harder it is to get them back there. And it's really delicate. And as a result of that, it's also got those financial impacts too, because the median cost is 3 times more because they're longer out of the workplace. It's a different style of treatment. So the impacts are really, really huge on any business.
Okay.
Did anyone else have any questions at this point?
Yep. Cameron, did you want to say something, mate?
So how's this quantified? So, if an employee falls off a ladder and breaks their leg, we know what the injury is, but how do we know if they've sustained bullying within the workplace, or is it just their word against someone else's?
Look, that's a good question, and that's a really big fear, isn't it? That particularly my word against yours, all that kind of thing. Typically, if there was a genuine psychological injury and somebody made a claim from bullying against a manager or someone else in the workplace, iCare would generally accept that claim and start the treatment, but they would also investigate and try and understand what has happened, whether or not this was actually a genuine workplace injury. They would also look at extenuating circumstances, so the individual's background, much like a back injury that might happen at work. Was there a pre-existing condition that may come into it? But typically, if there is, that sort of misconduct identified in the workplace, that would be a matter for iCare to say whether they've approved the claim or not. What we would generally see before a claim for workers' compensation is made from an employee, you would hope that there's some robust sort of policies and procedures within your team, within your organisation about people that could report bullying, people that, so that there's opportunities for mediation and support or resolving of the issue within the workplace before it progresses into one of those bullying kind of claims. It'd be rare for an employee to go straight to iCare as their first point of call. You would hope that there'd be discussions internally with supervisors and things like that. But I think it's important to remember is that this managing psychological safety within the workplace is not looking at supporting your employees' personal life. Sometimes there's that crossover and employers have that fear of, well, when do I, stop being an employer and start being involved in someone's personal life? That's not what this legislation is asking. What this legislation is asking is essentially for you to consider what you can control and the psychological stresses that can come from the way work is constructed or from the systems of work within your organisation, and then apply the same risk management approach to physical risks as we do to psychological risks. So essentially it's adding in psychological hazards to physical hazards and then saying to employers, you already have that risk management approach, you already know how to do hazard identification, to monitor, to review, to maintain controls, you know how to do all of these things. We want you to continue doing it to physical and also look at the psychosocial hazards that might exist in your workplace. Now, when I spoke with Luke about this before when we were planning for this, we said a lot of employers are already doing this. You are already managing those risks. You are already considering how your work environment impacts on people. You are already considering whether the type of work somebody does might be creating additional anxiety or additional stress, or how do we support workers if they're doing remote work or they're doing isolated work. Those things are already happening. What the legislation is doing is just bringing it to the forefront, I think. So did anyone have any questions at the point about bringing the risk management approach to the way we handle psychosocial hazards in the workplace?
I'll jump in while we're waiting for that. When Meg explained this to me last week and said the psychosocial risks are the same as falling off a roof, and I was like, okay, well, does it need to go into a SWIMS? Is that actually another line in a SWIMS that has a risk matrix applied to it to say, okay, if someone's doing 7 days a week for, 52 weeks, obviously that's going to impact on their ability to do their job properly and probably create an accident. So the risk control is that they do 5 days a week and they do, every second Saturday is the most that we can give. Those sort of things is what you're kind of saying that we need to start thinking about with psychological safety. Is that right, Meg?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To give another example, I work on the mid-north coast, and I was dealing with a retail client this week, and they're coming into their busy Christmas period. And as part of their psychological safety risk assessment, they said, look, we understand that in the coming month, we're going to have people that are coming into our store that are stressed, that are cranky, that are financially under pressure, and maybe aren't going to treat our staff that well. So what can we do as employers to make sure that we're not putting our staff at risk and that they're able to cope with the additional pressures of their job? Because you can't remove all hazards. It's the same with puddles on the floor. It's the same with the sun. Sometimes if you work outside, you have to control that hazard. So what this employer said was, well, how do I control that hazard? How do I make sure that my structures of work and my work environment are supporting them? And they were really proactive in that they've said they will roster people to not work 2 days over the weekend because they felt they might be dealing with more potentially cranky members of the public. They would split that up. And if someone works a Saturday, they don't also work a Sunday. So that's what we're talking about in terms of they've assessed a risk, they've looked at the control, and they've put that in place. That's what I suppose the legislation is asking all employers to do, to look at their business and say, okay, how are we creating additional stress on our employees through our systems of work, role clarity, through our structure, or through the behaviours that we allow in the workplace? And that is very different to sort of managing someone's personal issues or personal concerns. That's part of it too, being a supportive employer. But the legislation is asking you to look at your structures, your work environments, how work is shared, the systems, the processes, and the organisational justice, and then put those controls in place. And that sort of gives us a process and gives us a very, very clear structure of how we can manage these risks and not only be compliant, but improve the organisation, improve the experience of all our staff.
Hey, Meg, I'll jump in there. When I got into this with Meg last week, I have decided I'd put on another webinar on the 10th of February next year where we'll actually be looking at how to rate the risks. Because telling you how to do this is one thing, but actually we're going to go through and actually say, well, this is how you could do it on a swims. As you know, we're now creating swims, so we'll also be creating this stuff for you guys as well. So try not to let this part of it bog you down because there is a bit to do. But the other thing is that there's probably not a lot of employers already doing this. So this is new news. It's not something we need to get done tomorrow. So we wanted to bring awareness to rate the risks and put them through a risk matrix. But for this webinar, if it's okay, Meg, we might put that conversation on ice because it's going to need a lot more work from you and I over the Christmas break, and we'll bring that back to the community on the 10th of February.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
So another one of the common concerns we talked about was there's generally a bit of a fear talking about mental health may make the problem worse. Are we giving people ideas? Are we opening ourselves up to claims? And what we find again and again and again is that the statistics show that awareness reduces stigma around mental health issues, and open conversations can encourage early help seeking, which really stop problems escalating and festering. So early intervention prevents escalation. It's really important in your organisation to make sure that there is an open environment where mental health can be discussed, that people can talk about their challenges. That's what would be known as a psychologically safe workplace. And Luke's going to talk a little bit about how Multiply Me can support that. But we just want to really reinforce that the statistics show the more awareness and the more discussion in any workplace, the more psychologically safe it's going to be. And it gives a business owner a chance to address issues before they escalate.
Absolutely. Hey, Meg, I will cross to Kurt here because I'd love to get his response on this, but I've had multiple conversations with people. I tell them what I do and they're like, hey, Luke, just stop talking about it. You're giving everyone ideas. But Kurt, what have you seen in this space? Do you get people saying, stop talking about it, or give us your opinion on this one?
I mean, obviously I've got a bias that I do want people to talk about it. Part of me, my counsellor brain goes, what's the evidence that underpins that thought? So what's the evidence that actually underpins that us talking about it is going to give people ideas? Because part of me thinks that some people maybe have a vague reference point where that has happened, but my guess would be it's actually more avoidance and being kind of daunted by having that conversation, which is obviously understandable. I can understand that people may feel uncomfortable having some of these kind of conversations, especially in a public space. But I can unequivocally say that talking about mental health does not make the problem worse. It doesn't give people ideas. And certainly so many clients are coming to mind of feeling such a relief when this was raised in their workplace, or they were able to have a one-on-one conversation with someone in their workplace. That was a sort of a profoundly positive experience, because I know a lot of people, and I'm actually one of them, it can be hard to go, I'm struggling, and having it as a conversation certainly may give someone the confidence or the push in the right direction that, hey, like I can actually have a conversation like this in this workplace. But yeah, certainly I think it's sort of an old wives' tale. They're talking about it will make the problem worse. I've never had any clients say, like my family or my workplace talked about it and it made me feel worse. It's only if that conversation is handled without sort of tact. The broad conversation does not make things worse.
Yeah, got it. No, totally agree. Cool. All right. So Meg, we're going to move on to the next part of this, and it's essentially introducing what we call the 5 pillars of how we're going to address this in Multiply Me. So because I've been on building sites for 30 years, when I hear all this stuff and speak to people like Meg, I think, what does it actually mean to me? Like, how the hell do we become counselors? How the hell do we keep everyone supported while we're trying to pay bills, win jobs, and do everything else? And that has been pretty well the overwhelming response when I talk to people about psychosocial. I feel like they look at me sometimes and go, well, what are you talking about? And how does this matter? So we've gone through why it matters. Now we're going to talk about the practical solution that I feel, and everyone that I've taken this to has said, Luke, this is a really good system. The thing, and Meg has said the same, and it's why she supports what we're doing here. I do want to just put a small caveat in front of this. You cannot do what we're saying here and expect everything to be fine. You still need to talk to your staff, and there's a survey in what I'm about to show you. You still need to address the concerns in the survey. So don't feel like what I'm serving up here can get you the whole thing done. And I know that everyone on the call, especially everyone that joins Multiply Me, is very staff focused anyway. So I know that there's things that you're doing. So this is a complement to, maybe having your quarterly barbecue or whatever it is. I'm sure that you pull people aside in the office and say, hey, I can see you're under a bit of pressure. Can I help you out? I know multiple of you on the call I've had that conversation with, and you've told me that you already do that. So that being said, what we've put into the Multiply Me platform, which you already have in there, is a whole bunch of videos we've made them with Toolbox Tom, who is now becoming a bit of an Aussie legend, which I'm really excited by what he's doing. But other people like Constructing Greater Minds, these videos are your communication. So you don't have to be there with your staff every day to say, hey, how you doing? Or to say, hey, this is what bullying means. Hey, this is what online security means. We don't have the time for that. And we have also now got pretty solid proof that the communication through video is hitting just as good and sometimes harder than having your face-to-face meeting. The videos are definitely rolling around. We're checking it from different angles. They are making an impact. So the 4 pillars are essentially the videos that you have in your platform already. Keep sharing them to your team, at least one every 2 weeks. We will be going through your accounts and tagging the videos with a psychosocial tag, which actually address psychosocial concerns. So we'll be doing that over Christmas break. But essentially all you need to do, and popping these videos into your weekly safety and support group. So everyone on the call that's launched Multiply Me is already doing this, and it's already being documented. So thumbs up for that. The next 3 parts that you're not doing is a survey for the team. And maybe some of you are doing a survey internally, but now we've put a survey or a workplace wellbeing check into your account, and we'll create a folder in your libraries called psychosocial, and we'll be putting 2 smart videos in there. One is the survey. Toolbox Tom introduces the survey, tells your staff what they're going to answer. And this is just a survey that we can send out next year. So don't worry about acting on it this year. We'll actually guide you next year on when to send it out. And I think if we all do it as a group, we all go through that together. So there's now a new survey which will go live in your account. And then there's basic leader training. So you can survey your guys, but your leaders through the legislation also need to be trained on what to look for in the staff. And we've created a 4.5-minute basic video with Toolbox Tom and Sam that actually steps out. These are some of the common things that you're going to have to look for. And when I watch it, it actually brings my awareness up 10x. So I think this video combined with the survey, we launch that next year for all of our members, and you'll effectively have trained your leaders in some very basic awareness tools. And it also talks about TX and how to refer the TX button. and then we'll also survey the staff, and then I can help you go through those answers as well to say, okay, here's where you find all your responses. Generally 95% of them are going to be, yeah, we're all good. But there might be one or two niggling concerns in there that if you find them early through this survey, you can then take steps to address them in the workplace. And I think that's only going to lead to a more cohesive work environment. And then the last pillar is making sure that your staff actually have some further support. And that's where TX comes in. A lot of your supervisors and even the business owners may not have the tools to support these guys through some proper trauma or the support they need. So that's where you introduce TX again. By having the TX number on your account, you're already meeting the fourth pillar. So know that the first four things are already taken care of, but do be aware that the video, one basic training may not be enough. You're going to talk to the guys as well, and maybe you can send some of your leaders to other particular training that might be available in the workforce. But at least you know you've got something in place which is going to run very simply through your account. The fifth pillar is the risk assessment, how to do that risk assessment in the business over the psychosocial. So what we will do next year is once we launch the survey, that will tell you what the risks are in the business. People will tell you openly, hey, got too much work on, or I don't feel safe. So I think that's the way to then start creating your risk profiles. Like, okay, we've done a survey. There's actually nothing in the business people are concerned about. If that's the case, you might be able to use the template stuff that we put together. But I would say there'll be 2 or 3 people that are going to come up with something for you to think about. And then that will help you create your lines on your risk profile and then how we're going to manage those. So the fifth pillar will be the risk matrix next year, which Meg and I have vowed to take a little bit of effort into that over the Christmas break, and we'll have something clear and easy for you to follow next year. Meg, can you just talk back to that, the 4 pillars here, having that in place? Let's say one of our businesses mid next year, they say, hey, I'm working for XYZ company. They go to iCare and they say, hey, I've been bullied at work and I've been given far too much and I've never been given any support. Let's say they're using the weekly videos, they've done the workplace check, they haven't spoken up in the check, and then the leaders have also done this training, plus they've advised TX there. How do you feel our members are going to sit in that conversation?
Yeah, really well. I think the 4 pillars provide a really good basis for your psychological safety management toolkit. So much like a physical safety, the support provided by Multiply Me is part of your approach and part of the strategy. It's not all of it. As you said, Luke, there'll be some policies and procedures and some further training that you need within the workplace to make sure you're managing your physical hazards. It's the same with how we manage our psychological hazards as well. It's going to give a really good baseline. And I think the consistent videos and the way Multiply Me connects directly with people and it's recorded is so important. There was a case that came out, and we'll talk about it just really quickly. It was an unfair dismissal case. It was from somebody who was employed on Christmas Island as a truck driver. Now, they were found to have engaged in sexual harassment behaviour, so a male truck driver against another male truck driver, inappropriate jokes, very serious breaches of their code of conduct. So they were terminated. He put an unfair dismissal claim in, and it was found when the employer tried to defend it, they went back and said, yes, we had a half an hour toolbox talk on sexual harassment and what was part of our code of conduct, and they've breached that. And the Fair Work Commission said it was a tick and flick exercise. Half an hour was not enough to share the important requirements within the business or to share the standards of behaviour. So what this sort of pillared approach is doing is it's getting a really consistent, regular training back to the team, so that if there's an instance like this, you as an employer can say, well, I gave regular training, I gave consistent updates about what was bullying, what was my code of conduct, what were my standards of behaviour. I constantly showed them, the reporting pathways of how they could report issues and how you might have managed that. And you're adding into that the support from TX, which is really, really important to providing psychological safety, showing your staff that you care about their well-being and you want to make sure that they're okay as a whole person. But it also is recognising that it's not up to you as the employer to be responsible for every aspect of your employee's life. It is okay, and in fact it's recommended for you to refer them to professional counselling services. So I think the videos are really important in that sense. And again, what's our biggest requirement under work health safety laws? It's consulting, and it's understanding the risks from our staff themselves. So it's the same with physical safety. We really get really good insights about how we can improve work processes and how we can make things safer when we are staff. It's again, I think the third pillar is the survey, and that's really important for compliance and also understanding where the real risks are. So I think you're giving a really good setup of your toolkit of how you manage it from lots of different areas, which is great.
Wonderful. Just on this, when Meg brought this to me, actually just half an hour ago, I read this and I was like, are you kidding? And I really feel like the strategy that we have in place of sharing stuff consistently, I think is one of the biggest gaps. Initial training is sometimes done okay, but the workload to repeat everything that we need to repeat day in, day out, it breaks everybody. It breaks the person saying it, breaks the person listening. And switching that to video has been such a positive impact in everyone's business, which I think is really cool. Now, one of the problems that you talked about was the policy. Everyone knows we're doing video docs now. And the reason that we're doing video docs is the fact that giving someone a written policy at the start of their employment and saying, read this, come back with it signed, or even explaining it to them now in a 30-minute discussion isn't enough. Now, whether we agree with the system, it doesn't matter. It's the system that you will be ruled by if something is to come your way. So whether we get frustrated or agree with it, we've got to put that aside and say, well, we're playing this game of chess. These are the rules. Now we need to start stepping through the game board as it's put in front of us. So I would urge everyone, if you're not using our video docs, this might be a good opportunity to say, hey, if we're putting in a psychological strategy next year, we probably need to put in a video doc for the psychosocial stuff as well. Julie, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to make a comment on that. I know with our guys, hi everyone, I'm Julie from ShedX in beautiful South Australia. With our guys, you know, we can read, we can sit and talk through induction policies and whatever, but the thing now that I'm really thrilled about is when they read the induction notice and documents, they don't talk to each other about it. When they watch videos, they do. Now, our guys are always coming in the office saying, hey Julie, Ted wouldn't do that, or Ted wouldn't do this. You know, they're starting to talk about what they're learning on the video. So it's so true. You read a document, yes, you know, you might need to read it a few times, but the videos seem to be just getting through to them in a more thorough way, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Julie. So Julie joined Multiply Me live for maybe 2 months. We had a chat the other day and I've seen you've done a Google review that the impact and the guys talking about the video, was that surprising for you?
Absolutely, I was gobsmacked. I'm the only female in this company at the moment, and our guys, a lot of them have been here for a long time, but they're a great group of guys, and they are really. I have some background in some mental health training, but I've just with these videos, the support of the videos, I can't get over how the guys are more open. They come in and talk about it, as I said. So it's just been fantastic. They talk to each other in the car, you know, on the way to site. It's made a huge difference, and it certainly has taken the pressure off me as the HR person, because I feel like I've got some extra support as well. So it's just
that's
working
so
really
good.
well. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Thank you. All right, we've just come up onto the time of this webinar. Meg, did we have another point to cross there, or are we pretty well?
I think we've covered things very well. I did want to add in with that case, that individual who'd engaged in some pretty serious sexual harassment actually got their job back. So because the employer couldn't show that they had been trained fully, it was fair to expect them to meet those standards of behaviour. That person returned back to the workplace, which from my perspective creates a lot of psychological potentially hazards for the person who had been, you know, a victim of the original behaviour, and it also creates lots of problems in your workplace. So yeah, using this system and showing that we've got the evidence is really going to be, I think, quite impactful, along with some of the other supports as well. And the only other thing I wanted to say is we sort of had a bigger presentation, and I'm happy to share that with Luke and send it around, which has got some more detail about what these hazards might look like and how you can address them in a little bit more, insights.
Wonderful. I'm going to shout out to my mum who's jumped on the call today. Thanks for coming, Mum. Cool. All right. It looks like we probably explained things reasonably well. So what I would like to summarize with is that once Meg and I got into this through the week to kind of work out how to explain this and get through it in an hour, like there's a lot more that needs to be explained. So the risk matrix, the pillar 5, is really the one that when we embed that, Meg, I believe, agrees that you've got something that's so robust, but we do need to put that in next year. And like I said once before, if there's other external training, there's other bits that are going on around your community with WorkSafe, with other leadership groups, don't be afraid to put your leaders into these things. The more that they know around this, I believe, the better it's going to be for your staff, and then essentially profit margins in your business, because this will start to eat into your profit margins. If there's 2 or 3 people, I think it's 1 in 6 will suffer a mental health injury in every given year. So if you've got 12 staff, 2 people are going to go down every year. Now that's insane. That's huge. Now these are not predictions, these are actually happening. I would say take on everything we're doing, but please don't use that as the only thing that you do in your business. So from here, guys, a very serious chat today. We will put some work into the risk matrix. 10th of February is our next webinar, and we'll talk more about how to fill out the risk matrix. Maybe we've even got templates ready to go in Multiply Me. But what I would say is awesome for being here and learning all this. Take it off your mind now, because you've taken one step into it, and now get through the next 3 weeks. Talk to your team, make sure that they have a accident-free last 3 weeks, and then we can all jump into this as a group next year. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Kurt, for being here. Appreciate your time.
Cheers, mate.
We will also be seeing more of Meg. I think we've created a tie here that we can do more things together in the future. So thank you, everybody, for giving us your time. We'll be sending out a newsletter shortly, and we'll be also putting in the survey and the leadership training into your account. But as I said, don't worry about it. We'll teach you what to do with it next year. Thank you, guys. You're all awesome. Talk soon. And Merry Christmas if I don't see you beforehand. See you guys.